This is Jamie Drummond for Good Food Revolution. I'm here with Chef John Placko, and today I'm going to be interrogating him a little about his take on the tome that you can see beside you, Modernist Cuisine. I had the great pleasure of attending a demo at Nella Cucina, which was put on by Alison of the Cookbook store in Toronto, and Chef Placko was actually presenting this amazing demonstration of some of the techniques and equipment that are covered in detail in the Modernist Cuisine book, or collection of books. How did you foster this fascination with the techniques and methods detailed in Modernist Cuisine?
It all started with a trip down to the CIA at Napa Valley. They had a conference there called World of Flavors back in 2006. And each year they pick a different topic. And the topic of that year was Spain. And often they cover off a broad variety of different food types from around the world. But this one was very focused on Spain. And the headline chef for the event was Ferran Adria from El Bulli, but I was totally fascinated with what they were doing. I often didn't understand the techniques they were using, some of the ingredients, definitely some of the equipment, and it was just totally fascinating. And for me, it felt like I had gone back to the point when I was 20, starting my cooking apprenticeship, and knew very little about food. I had that same feeling of really not knowing a lot about what they were doing. So I then just jumped on and started educating myself on these techniques, the ingredients, various different ways, going onto the internet, buying cookbooks, buying equipment for home, and then traveling to different parts of the world where modern cuisine was being executed. And that's really how I garnered the information I have today on the subject.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about some of the equipment that's being used to create the Avant Garde, the Molecular Gastronomy, what we would typically find in the books if you were to flip through Modernist Cuisine. Here's some of the ones that most likely you would use at home. A lot of restaurants or hotels would buy this equipment. So the Thermomix is one piece of machinery that's incredible. It weighs the ingredients, it blends the ingredients, and it also has a heating element, so you're actually able to set a temperature and a time and make a creme anglaise, or make a custard, or make a soup. It's just so versatile, it's foolproof, the skill involved, there is none. It's time, temperature to get a very consistent result. So we're seeing restaurants not only buying one, sometimes they have 4, 5, or 6 of these units to create consistency, particularly if they're a busy restaurant. You still need skill in the kitchen, but here's some preparations where you don't need to use skill and you duplicate the same product day after day, and that's what your customer expects. They come to you for something that they love and they want it to be the same every single time.
What is an anti-griddle?
An anti-griddle is like a griddle. It's a flat top. It's a unit that's about 15 inches by about maybe 18 inches, 12 inches high, and the surface goes to minus 34 degrees Celsius, so you're able to instantly freeze products. So if I had a chocolate mousse, or if I had a flavored mango puree, I can drop it on the anti-griddle, put in some little popsicle sticks, and create instant little popsicles. I can make them quite firm, like with a mango puree, or I could make a fluffy mousse on top, so that what I'm eating is like a nice soft ice cream like texture. So it's freezing items. You could make a frozen vinaigrette on there, you can pipe chocolate to make instant little garnishes, you can pour maple syrup on to turn it into the taffy. So that's a pretty neat little gadget.
I've seen some very interesting things done with what looks like a vacuum sealing unit to me. I'd like to know a little bit more about that.
So a chamber vacuum sealer, or an external vacuum sealer like a food saver, is needed. If you're going to do sous vide cooking, you need to be able to put your food into a food safe plastic bag, pull a vacuum, and not only does it take out all the air and completely surround the food, creating good conductivity for sous vide cooking, but you can also really compress the food to actually change the texture of say, watermelon or a melon or some kind of a fruit and compress it. It'll actually change color, and it will be compressed, and it'll have a different kind of a bite to it. The other thing you can do with it is you can marinate your meats, and as you're vacuuming it, you're actually creating an airtight seal and marinating the product in the bag, and then when you're cooking, you're actually cooking in its own juices. And you can actually even rapid pickle. So I could pour a pickling liquid in with my cucumbers or my vegetable, pull a vacuum, and I instantly pickle the product ready to use. So there's 3 kinds of uses, and as well as that, you can actually use it just for storage, just to take the air out, make the product nice and small and compact so it doesn't leak in the fridge, and use it for storage.
Now, probably one of the most common gadgets that I've seen in kitchens recently would have been that used for sous vide. Could you explain how that works a little bit more for those of our viewers who are not familiar with that concept?
So the thermal immersion circulator works in tandem with a vacuum sealer. So you seal the product in a bag, and you're then going to put it into a water bath. And so what a thermal immersion circulator does is typically it hooks onto some kind of a vessel, so it might be like a clear camber container or a pot, and it will heat up the water and circulate it at a very precise temperature within 0.1 of a degree of the desired temperature. So you can cook fish and meats and vegetables and fruits at a precise temperature at a precise time to get exactly the kind of consistent results you want time after time.
When people think of molecular gastronomy, modernist cuisine and the like, so often people speak of foams, and foams are quite often made fun of by many people when they refer to this style of cooking cuisine. Why are foams so prevalent?
I think there has been a lot written about foams, and it seems like molecular gastronomy and foams were synonymous together, and people said, I've had enough of foams. It's such a very, very small part of what modernist cuisine is all about. It is about different ingredients, its textures, its flavor combinations. It's using certain kitchen gadgets to create perfect cooking environment, great results, consistent results. So I can understand how foams have come and gone and people don't want to see them anymore, but there's so much more that goes into modernist cuisine. And I guess one of the things that we should talk about really is liquid nitrogen. So you can't make a better ice cream than taking a beautifully made ice cream base and then adding liquid nitrogen to it. The ice crystals are so small because you're adding a substance that's at minus 196 degrees Celsius to something that's around 4 degrees, and the ice crystals are so small you can't make a smoother ice cream. You can drop raspberries in that you can then shatter into tiny little niblets that could be used as dessert garnish or salad garnish once they've sat in the freezer and actually warmed up to a temperature that they can be used at.
Warmed up
From exactly, putting in the freezer to warm it up before you can use it. But also the kind of textures you can create with liquid nitrogen is it's phenomenal.
How did you begin to introduce these methods and techniques into your own kitchen at home?
So I started buying different pieces of equipment. The Paco Jet, the Thermomix, immersion circulators, vacuum sealers. I started off buying one piece at a time and really understanding what it could do, what kind of recipes I would be able to execute with it. And so I've been doing that over the last 5 years. And so my kitchen is just cram-packed with all kinds of different gadgets. At one point I thought I had all the gadgets you need, but in fact when you start to look at the Modernist Cuisine and the set of books, I realized I have the tip of the iceberg.
If our readership, our viewers, were not willing to drop $600 on the Modernist Cuisine collection to your right, can you suggest a place that they could start?
I would say the best place to start is online. If you Google the different restaurants in the top 100. So you go to the world's 50 best restaurants and you start looking at what these restaurants are doing on their menus. But there's a wealth of information and other books like, if I think of Under Pressure by Thomas Keller on sous vide cooking. The Alina Cookbook has a lot of information similar to this one. This one really goes into a lot of detail about not only sous vide, but the history of food, the fundamentals of cooking. It obviously goes into plants and gums and starches and why is meat tough and why is it tender and how to cook it differently. And the recipes are interesting because you've got standard recipes and you have parametric recipes. So if I want to create a gel that's a brittle as opposed to elastic, what kind of products do I use? So that has a lot of information, more like an encyclopedia, but there are other books that are less expensive that cover some of the topics in great detail. But the net has a ton of information on it.
Well, Chef Placko, thank you very much for joining us at Good Food Revolution. I have one final question for you, which is, what does good food mean to you?
Good food, what I think of is, I think of seasonal ingredients, like now we're talking about asparagus. I think about the flavor, and then I always think about the textures. So if the asparagus has that texture, I probably want something on it that's nice and creamy, maybe a hollandaise, and then I want something crispy, so I think about textures and textural changes when I'm eating something, and that's probably what good food means to me.
Well, thank you very much, Chef Placko. We look forward to catching up with you in the future.
Excellent, thanks for your time.